Welcome to the very first episode of the Lighthouse Podcast, where we shine light on real questions and real life through faith. I'm your host, Julian, and I'm currently here with our guest, Leo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Good. I'm glad that you're here. Whether you're listening at home or wherever you're at, just know that we hope this podcast encourages you and reminds you that you're not alone on this journey. Now, we have a pretty interesting topic that we want to share with everyone today, which is
mental health.
Mental health. This month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to take a moment to kind of let that set in. Like, we struggle with that every day, I'm pretty sure. We struggle it with in your daily life, in work, in school, and wherever, in many types of places, right? And we kind of want to touch base and kind of share with you guys our thoughts about it, and even kind of dive into it, you know?
I love the verse you all chose. I really do.
Yeah. Which is, you want to say it?
Go ahead.
It's Psalms 34:18, which says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." It's a powerful reminder, right? That God doesn't leave you when you're down, and right when you're kind of, I guess you can say, when you're falling or when you're about to start struggling with something, He meets you head on. He doesn't meet you after, which is, it's pretty interesting, you know? I mean, like, who does that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who meets you when you're at your worst? Which is pretty insane. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's funny because today in particular, when I was at work, as I was thinking about what to bring what ideas I could bring to the podcast, I actually brought these points out to my students. It's the end of the school year. Everyone's dead as it is. There's no more work going on. And so I just took a few brief moments and I told them, "Hey guys, guess what? I'm on a podcast today." And they were like, "Oh my God, you're going to be on a podcast? Oh wow, Sir's going to be on a podcast." And so they, I was just trying to rile them up.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "What about, sir? What about?" They don't speak that way. But,
Yeah.
They were asking me what I was going to talk about.
Uh-huh.
And I told them it was about mental health. And I go, "Oh." And so then I began to ask them, "How do you all feel about that topic?" And then they realized they are the perfect age to ask that in, because they're at that growing stage. I have freshmen and seniors, so I see kind of the whole stretch of growth within that high school time frame. And so, one of the questions that we were thinking about for today was, why do so many young people struggle with this particular issue?
Yeah.
And I'll get into the faith aspect in a little bit, but that one thing about how young people respond to this, I think one of the common thread that I kept seeing today, and as I was talking to them and dialoguing back and forth, was kind of this sense of they feel so dislocated in almost everything. So they have a hard time fitting in school. They're more unified when they're little, right? Because the job that they're doing when they're little is just playing.
Yeah.
And they're learning their social skills, and as they get older, they say they begin to feel little by little. They just begin to feel more fragmented, both at home, because the home situation can begin to fall apart, and then at school, because everything, all the drama that happens and all of the different stories that you're told. And I think one of the things that we need to think about as church leaders and as youth leaders in particular is we need to stop pretending that we don't feel dislocated.
Yeah.
We need to stop pretending with young people that we are also not confused, because we are. And so, one of my teachers, the way he put it was that because we live in such a dislocated, journey, particularly here in our our American culture, young people have a million stories in their head all at once. There is no more unifying story. It used to be the case that's kind of how it was, right?
Yeah.
You believe in God, you kind of went to church, you did this, you did that. A good citizen looks like this, A good person kind of looks like that. And now there's so many narratives. So one of the things that I've tried to do this year with my young people, with some of my students, is when they come to my classroom, when we do the Christian meetings, some of them are fresh to this whole conversation, I simply invite them to think about what if this story is the story, and it's a story of God and creation and the world and human beings and us, and what if this story can guide us. So I think part of the reason why young people feel so stressed is because of all of the different things that they have to think about all at once. And at church, we kind of just pretend that we're on the same page sometimes, and we're not. Like, we're just not. And so part of the solution to that, I think, is just to help young people say, look, I'm not here to prove to you that God is with you. I'm not here to prove to you that He's real. I'm not here to prove to you that we can get you all the answers in life. But what if this story is the real story? Out of all the things that we hear on a daily basis, what if there is the loving God of Genesis who creates the world and gives us purpose and meaning, who is revealed in Jesus and all these things? If we can find a baseline and just leave it at a what if, just leave it at the what if, I think that is already a great step to relieving some of the anxiety. Because even within our church, you're going to see a lot of different answers and voices.
And kind of like, I like how you put that, right? Where we need that form of dislocate that we might be having with maybe like through the youth, with the adults in the church, or everyone in general. It's something we need to open up, kind of, right? Because like
just make people aware of it.
Yeah, because
why is it scary to admit that?
Yeah, it's like they make it seem like you're weak.
Yeah,
like you're weak if you
see
don't.
That kind of almost domineering also thing too. It's like, why aren't you on the same page as us? And it's like, well, bro, have you seen the kind of things that a young person have to think about on a daily basis?
And then nowadays with social media.
And and that's what I brought up with the kids too.
Yeah, it's like with social media now, there's this study, right, where in 30 minutes they're looking at probably over 50 different. Like if you're on Reels or if you're on TikTok, you're looking at maybe over 50 different things if you're on it for 30 minutes. So their mind is, you're going through different type of content that is just, like, I don't want to say eroding, but it's just going into your mind, and you're reading all of that, which
social media has the power to fragment even more. It creates a complete lack of attention. I don't know if y'all saw that meme of like movie theaters, and then in 10 years from now, and it's like a big TV screen. And then the bottom is like a Subway Surfer game playing, just to keep the young people, to keep their attention span. It's crazy, but social media also fosters comparison. Yeah, it creates that sense of who is out there, who's better than me, who can I copy, who can I emulate, and that's not the God and the creation story that we if that were to be the baseline story, comparing myself to other people, trying to see how I can be better than other people, those narratives don't belong to you.
They're negative.
They're negative things, and so they actually those are the actual things that make us weaker. But for many young people, those are the things that give them identity, and that's sad. I find that very sad.
Yeah, it's like when now I'm in university, right? But when my final year of high school and senior year, I remember everyone. Well, I went to public school, right, to finish high school. There was so much going on with homecoming. You got the football, which they would do mums and all that, where people literally, mums are more for girls, right? But there's some football players that use mums, like their moms or their girlfriends give it to them, to the football players. Yeah. But the girls would go absolutely crazy just to show off their mums. Like they would make
$700 mums.
Yeah, like some crazy mums. Like it would be like a huge sash, basically. And I would see so many people like start just like they start not fighting, but you could see that they were like highly just like stressed about it, because like they would just be constantly thinking like, man, does it look good? Is it big enough? Like is it a big sash? Like is it gonna like catch people's eyes? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, man.
And all for a picture.
We're all for a picture, or all for a prize. Yeah. What's the prize? You know what I mean? Like, I understand. Like, it's kind of like a joy that you're gonna get, right? That you're gonna have that little time of happiness.
And that's the way. And that's the way it always goes. It's always something decent that ends up turning into a stress. That ends up turning into you withdrawing to yourself because you're frustrated about. And that's where the whole mental health thing. Yeah. It takes something nice like a football game, join time together, a nice mom, and it turns it into a competition. So yeah, I see what you're saying. And one of my one of my favorite Christian authors. Her name is Carmen Imes. If I can just read this, she says,
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm not quoting her verbatim, but she does emphasize the sense of belonging to God. That narrative is not within a young person's mind that often, even the ones that come to church.
Yeah.
This idea that I belong to God. And she wrote a book called Bearing God's Name. So her whole point is we tend to treat that commandment as the don't say God's name in a wrong context. What she brings to light is she's saying, no, the word is to bear. Do not carry God's name in vain. So if you're out there, and if the narrative you tell yourself, and this is why we have issues with other religions too, right? Yeah. Everyone has the mega narrative. Here's our narrative. The one of God, and the Bible, and Moses, and onward, and then into Jesus and the cross. That's our narrative, right? Yeah. And we're not out there to try and, bash people with that narrative and hurt them with that narrative. We're trying to share that story, and hopefully they come to believe, right? That's what sharing the gospel should be. Yeah. There are plenty of instances in history where we do that kind of the wrong way, but she says this: when we really let it shape our identity, and this matters a lot in today's world too, where a lot of the nationalistic identities kind of overdominate the Christian ones. Yeah. There's too much of a blend sometimes between politics and faith, and that's also a scary thing. Oh yeah. But when young people lose a sense of who they belong to, if you just belong to yourself, and good luck with that. That's where you see all the mental health things really go crazy. But if you can tell yourself that you belong to He who is above all names, I guess, the world becomes less scary, becomes less lonely. You can find a grounding space. Even if you struggle to understand who God is and where He is and how much He really is with you, you still have a baseline. And so I think what we need to do is just kind of nudge young people and remind them that if He is there, then what a better friend to have next to you. What a better
support system.
What a better, not just support system, but what a better place to find your identity. Yeah. And so, but anyway, I like the second question that y'all gave me to think about.
Oh yeah, it's can I be a Christian and still deal with anxiety, depression, or burnout?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt.
Faith is not the absence of personal struggle. It's resilience through any struggle. That's ultimately faith. When you read David's Psalms, I remember, it's funny how y'all chose this theme. I mean, because, not funny, I'm sorry, it's just how good that y'all chose this theme, because I remember one of the first few talks that I began having with people once I was coming out of university, and people were inviting me to come speak in places, that one of the first things I want to talk about was mental health and emotions, how to pray through emotions and difficult times. And reading through the Psalms, man, I mean, it's a whirlwind. An absolute whirlwind sometimes, because you're reading someone's rawest emotions. God, where are you? And where are you? And why aren't you here? And why aren't you here? And why aren't you here? And you've abandoned me, haven't you? And sometimes that's just the whole psalm.
It's very direct.
And it's in the Bible, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember I showed that to a young person, and they were expecting some kind of a response, and it's not. That's just the psalm. It's a psalm of despair. Absolute lament. If that's in the Bible, why can't we help young people speak that way to God?
Yeah. It's like, kind of like where we were going with our first question too. It's that to open up, to be able to share those emotions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To make it, to normalize it. There we go. To normalize those times of weakness that you may have. It could be struggles, as in, maybe you're just done.
Yeah.
Like it's just you're so occupied with each little thing. Maybe you're a leader in the church, and then you work a full-time job, 9 to 5, and then let's say you have kids, or you're like a young parent, or a parent in general, or even a high schooler. I mean, a high schooler is like, if you're in, let's say like you're the school president, right, or whatever, the of like the student association and stuff like that. You have so much on your plate, and if you're feeling those emotions, but you're taught that you can't, you have them bottled up.
And also, what if you're not in those positions? What if you feel like you're not really worthy to be in those spots, or you feel lesser than
and
the
then
people who
you
are
have
in the
like a combination of both, kind of, you know what I mean? Like you have a combination of where like you're done, as in you feel like you don't belong, like you said, and then you have another thing where it's like
it's too much.
It's too much. Like it's too much for me to even like to do anything because I'm just overworked.
Yeah.
And in my experience, for me, I've kind of slowly day by day getting better at it, still have my struggles, but to know that we're not going to get it all in one day, but to know that we do belong. Everyone belongs. You could be, it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, you belong. It doesn't matter your you know what I mean? Like it doesn't. You're all children of God.
One of my teachers put it so cool. He says the biblical characters that we often see as the heroes, they're far from being sanitized.
Yeah, they're far.
Like when you look at when you look at the stories of David and Elijah and Job, I mean, these are people whose stories were just riddled with suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, I guess, ancient writers were less, they had less of a reason to doubt why we should talk about struggles, but they put them in there all the time.
Yeah.
And they show us people who wrestle and fail miserably sometimes. And it's as if here in our young youth culture, it's like we don't know how to deal with those things. It's as if we probably have a culture of too much of a perfectionist culture, perhaps.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that we're still human beings, and we're going to fail, and we're gonna make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Just yesterday, I remember I was talking to one of my students, and he had made a joke, I had made a joke, and he kind of walked away, and I was like, oh my, did that come off the wrong way? It's like,
no.
Why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. And the very first thing I made sure this morning was to go back, and I slightly addressed it, but I also just tried to show him that personality that came out for a few seconds, that's not me that I should be. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
And I apologized, and I shook his hand, and we don't practice that anymore. That's the number one thing I see in my kids, that they get so burnt out, or young people get so burnt out. And you know what they never do? They never try and forgive. Or they never try to ask for forgiveness. Like how many times do you think David asked for forgiveness after having committed the horrible things that he did? Please, like, my soul, oh forgive, Lord, like, please, like, this is so personal.
Yeah.
And we don't, so when I saw the question, can someone have a strong faith and also deal with anxiety? Sometimes anxiety comes from failure. Sometimes depression comes from feeling like you're not enough. And that's what I kept hearing with all my students, is this sense of expectation, failing. It's Mount Everest. You're never going to get there. And that's one thing that highly propels the stress level in young people. And the biblical characters that we always read about are some of the most flawed people in the stories.
Yeah.
And that's you and me. We're there too. We can learn from those stories too. A book that I read during the pandemic, it's called God in the Pandemic. When we lament, when we come to God and actually be, like you said, and just be honest with Him, it's not a failure of faith. It's a function of how faith actually works.
Yeah.
It's how people who want to belong to God's covenant, it's how they speak with God, believing that this is truly a God who listens. And so when that happens, I mean, it's powerful.
Yeah.
It can reshape the way your emotions are, the way your heart palpitates. You have that baseline, that support in the bottom. But anyway, I think the last question is also very, very important.
Yeah, let's dive into it. Where is God when I'm mentally or emotionally exhausted?
This is probably the hardest question.
This
one's always tricky to answer, because I think we all will answer it differently depending
on your experiences.
On your experiences, on the way you manage your faith, but also, and the way you let God work in and through you, but also your temperament.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we don't talk enough about with young people and church members. We all have different temperaments. Like, I don't know if you ever met like a church board member or a leader in the church, and they're kind of just very abrupt people, and you're like, whoa, like that's a lot of personality. Yeah. But then everyone's kind of used to them, and it's like, oh yeah, that's how that person is. And when you really get to know them for a little bit, you realize, oh, they're not that bad people. They're just very blunt sometimes. It's like, so we fail to take in temperament too when we talk about these things. So going back to the question, where is God? The best way I can put it is God is with that person.
Yeah.
Even when it 100% does not feel like that's the case. That's the faith part. That's me saying something that I cannot 100% show you with my hands or with, you know, a data sheet, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to affirm. If Jesus really did rise from the dead, if he is really the victor over death, then the God that he claims to be showing us who he is, then this is what we have to say. And it's a hard thing to say sometimes.
It's something that we might not know at this point fully we might not fully understand that this question, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we might have moments, like you said, or experiences of captivating what this question means, like how you said, the most simple way I can answer it is that he's with us, that he's there, and kind of like in Psalms, that we read at the start, that he's there right when you're at that peak, before you even get to that peak, he's there. And then when you are at bottom, top, whatever you are, he is always there.
And what I would tell young people is, just as you saying that he is there, or when I said that he is there, you have to already understand that there are people out there whose minds immediately said, no, he's not. You know? Or I've never felt him. Or right, I've been there, and what? So we have to, that's what I'm talking about. We need to embrace this culture of what you really are feeling.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, then these words that we're saying are useless. But rather, if I say, okay, you might feel it in the moment, I understand your frustration. But if you keep saying it, if you keep thinking about it, you realize, first off, Paul was super despaired in almost every major portion of his ministry. And then the disciples who followed Jesus and all these early Christians, I mean, they saw every single shred of hope fall when they saw Christ crucified. So despair and faith, they seem to just be meshed in together. And the only reason why that might be the case is because of love. You know, love requires an element of sacrifice, period.
Yeah.
And it should have played out differently since creation, but it doesn't. So it's playing out this way, I think. It's playing out where we have to learn to trust, and trust takes sacrifice. But when it does happen, and when that young person who might have felt, no, I don't think he is with me, when we said that, come a year or two, come a couple of weeks, there's an experience, there's a moment, there's a song, there's a prayer that's done, and that person says, oh my gosh, she really is here. And you know what? He always had been here.
Yeah.
Even if it took a while to get there. So if you feel numb, if you feel hopeless, you know, I just want to say that, you know, you're never forgotten, and that's what the church is supposed to do. We're supposed to help the people who feel forgotten.
Yeah.
Emotions are not emotions should not be like a thermometer of God's proximity.
Yeah.
Okay. The cross is the ultimate measure of God's proximity, and that proximity really is love shown through sacrifice, but also through friendship.
Yeah.
No greater love has one than this, than he who lays down his life for his friends. And that's what Jesus, that's the teaching, you know. That's what the teacher said.
Yeah.
But then the teacher did it. That should be the ultimate measure of God's love. And whenever I think we feel that despair or that disconnect from God, look back to the cross and spend time with the cross. And not just the cross, the stories where he's with the people who are sick, and the stories where he's walking amongst those who don't have anything, and he tells them, by the way, you are everything. We need to learn to do that. That's kind of one of the last points I wanted to bring up before we finish this podcast. It's like, we talk a lot about mental health and how to listen to yourself, how to open and express yourself. But also, one of the best ways to grow and heal emotionally is to start thinking about others.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what Jesus did day in and day out. Right now, I'm showing my kids. We're covering Australia for geography. And I'm showing my kid Steve Irwin. I don't know if y'all remember Steve Irwin. That guy was crazy. Absolutely insane. But he loved animals. Yeah. And so they're seeing this man's passion for a little lizard, you know. Even a crab. He calls a crab beautiful. You know, we don't often call crabs beautiful. It's like, and that kind of empathy for a creature, you know, why is it so hard for us to learn to see people as, oh yeah, that person, I can be a friend to that person. Oh, this person, I remember my student just wanted to go straight into a fight the other day. And I looked at them straight, and I don't think they had ever been told this, and I looked them straight in the face, and I said, You're better than that. You know that, right? Have you ever thought about forgiving that person? And I'm saying this in front of the whole classroom. And their face was just like, no. It's like, no. Like, I have never thought of that. Because this is the culture we live in.
Yeah.
And those thoughts are the exact same thoughts that kids in our church will likewise have. We detach ourselves. We are fragmented. We don't talk about the fragmentedness. We don't talk about the fact that we have different ideas of how faith works. We need to have those moments of just being honest and not judging young people if their ideas about Jesus or God are different than ours.
Yeah.
We need to allow those spaces to happen. Because the more you pent things up, heck, that's what influences more emotional stress and whatnot.
It's about like being a better listener than being a reactor. You know what I mean? Listening more.
And we're really good at reacting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really good at reacting.
Yeah, I am too.
And if I've learned anything this school year is silence yourself.
Yeah.
Just listen. And don't just listen, but look at the person that you're listening to.
Yeah.
A lot of young people need that. They need a place to find solace. And that first place should be God.
Mm-hmm.
But if it isn't, I mean, talk to a pastor. You know, we're not pastors. You know, this is a simple friend-to-friend chat of what we've thought about, what we've experienced. But you have a family of people that should be your church, and I feel for those who don't feel that community, that sense of bondness with their church family. That's a sad thing, and we need to work on that as leaders to make them feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, I have a home here. But yeah, it's a very important topic that y'all are doing.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that y'all are tackling this. Were there any questions that we were supposed to?
Well, I have some takeaways.
Oh, okay.
So I guess takeaways that we kind of noted from what we talked about today, right? One, for the listeners who are listening, right? If you're struggling mentally, it doesn't make you a bad Christian.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a bad child of God.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. We're all dealing with it, and kind of like where we ended with that place of solace, right? That place that you need to find. You have that with God, because you belong. And yeah, what's one takeaway you think?
Big takeaway for me is we learn to listen to others better, because that's a hard skill to develop.
Yeah.
And some people are great at it, and I've learned the hard way, and I'm still learning because it's a hard thing to do. But learn to listen better, and our young people have voices and they have ideas, and sometimes their ideas are not just wrong, they're stupid. It's like, and I feel bad for them, but then certain people will just make them feel bad.
Yeah.
And they'll make them feel judged, and then there's this withdrawal. They already have stress at home, they already have stress at school, and now they have stress at church.
Yeah.
And we need to really find a way to recalibrate that. No matter if they have great ideas but they don't know how to voice them, or whether they have really faulty ideas but they don't have to find a place where they can just dialogue with people who can show love to them. And another important takeaway that I would have is people in the Bible fail time and time again. People in the Bible are flawed time and time again. People in the Bible struggle mentally, like Elijah, time and time again. And you know what's amazing? When Elijah retreats, he takes that little break, which I think a lot of young people need to have more nowadays. You know what's amazing? The angel comes and he feeds him during that time when he's just napping like hardcore.
No, yeah, and it's like the angel who's feeding him, right? And then God who is strengthening him.
Yeah.
Who gave him that strength that was saying like, no, don't give up. Don't give up.
And once the rest is there, once he's recuperated for like 3 months, he's up.
Yeah, that was good.
And then God says, okay, now it's time to get back to the job.
Yeah. And he was ready.
That's what Sabbath should be. Sabbath should be a part of that journey of resting. Young people aren't resting properly, I think.
Yeah,
which is probably a topic for another conversation.
Yeah, probably another topic for another
conversation. But I do want to bring that up.
But that is true, because you need that time of rest, you know?
Yeah.
And I also have a challenge.
And rest takes different shapes and different forms and different seasons. But yeah.
It does, yeah. I also have a challenge for us, and then also for the listeners, that you guys should to check in. You guys need to check in on a friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Check in maybe at least once a week. Gotta check in on them, make sure if they're okay. And then, like, listen. Try to listen to see what they're saying. And another thing also, you guys should also try to support each other,
Yeah.
Try to support each other and not let each other hang.
Yeah, and we're here for each other.
Yeah, and I also have one more question for you. What's one truth or something you would like to share with the listeners so that they could hold on to?
God is with you. Always.
Amen. Yeah. Um, wow. Well, we tackled this head on. Pretty good for the first episode.
Yeah.
Well, just want to say, I just want to say thank you for being the guest for today.
Yeah.
And I also want to say thank you for the listeners. Thank you for joining us today on the Lighthouse Podcast. If this episode encouraged you, or please share it with a friend. And just remember, it's okay to not be okay sometimes. But you never have to stay not okay. Jesus is there. And also, if maybe that might not be your place of solace, talk to a friend. And keep shining, and we'll see you next time.